Last, but certainly not least, the good practices section, which for good reason isn't entitled best practices. Do you know the difference between a good and a best practice? For a good practice to become a best practice, it first has to be vetted by a team of select experts applying a set criteria. So for now, let's call these emerging practices good practices. The survey participants reported a plethora of good practices, which are too numerous to treat individually here in this format. Although many are cross-cutting, these good practices are associated with 6 universal tasks. For the sake of illustration, let me pick out one reported good practice from each. With respect to 3TG identification, and I quote, "We went through each of the components in our products to determine the percent makeup of 3TG and made sure that the supplier answers aligned with the known contents." Concerning conflict mineral program conceptualization. 1.5 years ago, no conflict minerals team or policy existed at our company. We have since put together a knowledgeable internal team consisting of members of upper management, legal, compliance, finance, and internal audit. We created and implemented a conflict minerals policy which was communicated to all our suppliers. At minimal cost, we created an internal system to conduct RCOI and due diligence. We reached out to 80% of our suppliers and received responses representing 99% of our spending. With regard to risk assessment, one issuer stated, "We implemented a social responsibility risk management system that looks at all third-party risks and the impact to our corporate brand to get ahead of future legislation and regulation." With respect to internal streamlining, according to one issuer, "We are a highly decentralized organization with 53 strategic business units in 19 countries, each with its own structures, systems, and procedures, and all of which participate in highly regulated markets. We did a great job of adopting a corporate one-size-fits-all policy, but working with and through the individual business units to implement the policy and maintain the relationships with both the suppliers and customers. Communication, both internal and external, was the key." Concerning supplier engagement and communication, "We identified all smelters in our supply chain and the trading agents and brokers between us and the smelters. To reduce supply chain risk, we are now focused on developing more direct relationships with the smelters to ensure supply chain transparency and reduce the total number of smelters in our supply chain. We are only dealing with smelters that are on the CFSI.org certified conflict-free list." With regard to collaboration and standardization with trade associations and peers, one issuer commented, "Working with industry associations has been one of the most important best practices. Establishing common practices, guidelines, and aligning industry processes help all those involved. We have been able to challenge our understanding of the requirements and leverage resources within other companies which supplement our internal team. There's a cost associated with joining the groups, but there's a high return on investment if you are actively involved." Clearly, companies are learning much from one another. At some point, trade associations may consider launching a best practice clearinghouse to collate and transmit learning. As a head start, please find the good practice verbatim from the companies on the survey's webpage. In closing, thank you for your interest in our survey, especially to those of you who made it through the whole thing. Thanks again to all the issuers who participated. In total, you guys labored just about 100 hours to complete our questionnaire. A more in-depth prose version of the findings will be published in a bit. And don't hesitate to get in touch in case of any questions. Auf Wiedersehen.